Hey, Orange One here. So we're going to talk about how you can get an undead vampire, not just a regular vampire, but one that's also got the magical powers that comes from being revived. So this guy has been revived. You can see that because they don't have any memories and they don't really care about their thoughts. Unfortunately, this one, with how I made it, they do have a wound that's making them constantly bleed, but it's not really like effectively changing anything about them. So that's actually okay. But you can make completely preserved vampires, and I'll go over how to get it so that they've got no wounds. Because most intelligent undead, you can drown them. But with these guys, you're going to want to freeze them. So I'll show you one easy way to do that in a little bit. But I want to show you a couple other ways to kill the vampire before you revive them, um, just so you can kind of compare them. So there's a method using a spear trap where it's hooked up to some lever that has just pull lever repeated on it. And if you can get the vampire burrowed, then they should even just regular citizens will burrow. You can also do a station order, but I think burrowing works a little bit better for getting them to actually stand on a particular spot. And you can see this one we're spear trapping. It's lost its hand, so it's losing a lot of blood right there. So it might die from blood loss there, which is actually a half decent vampire, but it probably wouldn't. So if you do this, it continues to wound it. But these wounds, they might be something that affects the undead. A lot of them don't, but some of them definitely do. If it like takes out their spinal cord or something, then that's probably gotta be an issue. So that one that we've got right there, it's not mangled, it's mutilated. So as long as it's not completely mangled, then you can usually revive it. I've also seen them say mangled here, but then had the necromancer get line of sight, and they've been totally able to revive. So that's something to just keep in mind. And then, this is the same as any undead. I've got a whole video on how to recruit undead, but you just basically want to have line of sight with the body and it should get revived, either as a zombie or as a, whatchamacallit, as an intelligent undead. But it does need the kangaroo needs to be you need to have some sort of animal that the necromancer will be aggressive with, and then they'll look, they revived this one, so you can kind of see this one actually is a half decent one. So I would say that this one is okay to work with, and like it might have some heavy bleeding issues, but as long as it gets access to the rest of the fort, it should get first aid done on it, which, depending on the wound, might continuously loop, or they might. Oh, look, someone they revived also her hand is a zombie. Cool. But if we give her access to the whole fort and unburrow her, she should try and go heal herself. Yeah, she needs to have this burrow gotten rid of. Yeah, look, she's now trying to find her access to her first aid kit, or not first aid kit, get the first aid dwarves, and then she'll immediately be like, hey, I need to get healed. So if you have an injured undead, they'll still get healed just like regular units, but they may have parts that can't be repaired. Like, that's gonna be fine. The heart being broken, that's not gonna be super fine. And the hand being gone is probably not a big deal. But yeah, I might make a cut if, oh, here we go. Nope. They're going to rest right now. You can see that they're going for resting. I did have a kind of a makeshift hospital right there. Let's not have you go there though. I want you to go. Oh no, yeah. So they tried to just rest there, but that didn't work out. So they'll actually go to our actual hospital and get first aid done as they needed. That's a nice option. That's how you get them injured, but maybe slightly healed. But you're likely to mess them up and get spinal injuries with that method. So just keep that in mind, that although it kind of works, there's other better methods that are limited by the map that you're on. You might not be able to freeze them, basically. But look, they're in our hospital. They'll get some first aid done on them. Um, they need some work done, but they should actually get. I think they'll be able to even stop this bleeding. I'm like almost positive. So here's our Sodal from just earlier. They actually no longer need medical attention, even though they're cut open and bleeding. They've had everything taken care of that they can. So yeah, she should be fine. Somewhat impaired grasp, but she does have magical powers, so I think that's a worthwhile trade. But let's show you the better way, okay? There is one interesting thing that I'd like to point out. If you get an injured brain, it can be really, really bad for these undead units. But if they're completely mangled, that's okay. If the brain's gone or completely destroyed, totally okay. And they don't have any nervous tissue problems. But if they have a broken brain, they definitely will. So just keep that in mind. So this is a good non-example of what you want to do. You don't want a spinal injury. So this is pretty bad because, let's see, they have nerve damage somewhere in here. It might be the neck or the head. I don't know. But in any case, they have sensory nerve damage, and that's not as bad as motor nerve damage. But it's pretty significant. It will definitely cause some issues. It might be, yeah. So you don't want undead like that, basically, because they're not nearly as good as soldiers. I mean, they'll work as magicians, but there is one other option that is, it's kind of not great because you're likely to get wounds, but what you can do is you can armor up your vampire, so you can just put them in a squad and equip them, and then just get rid of their helmet gear. You can just like exit out their helmet or whatever. They should get rid of it. And then once they've got that, then you can just hit their head. I mean, the spear trap I was finding was causing a lot of like nervous tissue damage, so I tried dropping like things on them using a whatchamacallit, a dump zone, and designating these things to be dumped. And so you can kind of see that like an example right there. That guy was just hauling a rock that he just dumped on this guy, and that should cause a good enough injury for this guy to eventually die. But as you can see right now, they stopped bleeding and they're gonna actually just be fine. So this method doesn't work great. It works a little bit better than the spear method. You get some usable vampires, but we're gonna show you the best way to get them perfect every single time. Okay, so this is the best method for getting an intact vampire. You want to basically freeze them. So you can do that with ice, which forms during winter or even spring. This is still a little bit held over. And you just need to have it be uncovered. So I've got some bridges over here. I've also had floors work as well. But walls will keep the things below them water, so they kind of stay like insulated or whatever. And then what you want to do is set up a burrow and assign whoever you want to go to that burrow. So like Bicod right there, he was assigned to the burrow, and so he went down there. Then let's see if we do like these guys. They don't always listen to these burrow instructions super well. Oh look, he just got frozen. Yeah, so he's in that ice right now, and if you set up a burrow, they should go for that. Go into the area that's been burrowed for them, but it's a little bit janky. I don't fully understand why or how they don't always go into the burrows. So if you know, put a comment down. So this is what I do is I'll dig up this one spot and then I'll dig up around it as well. And that should allow you to see the body, and we'll have access to it. It might take a minute though for our guys to get that dug out. So let's give them some time and then we'll jump back, okay? All right, so we have our vampire that was frozen down here, and he is coated in ice. And you can see he was actually found frozen. So that's what happens when ice freezes on them. We can try and dig this out a little bit, and that should make it easier to get to the body. I've set the body to just get dumped And I've set up a designated dump site right there. So that should get done eventually. We've got a number of vampires that have access to this area, but like they sometimes need to get dressed because they've got military gear and whatnot. So they may need a minute to actually get set up and going. But once one of them actually goes and grabs the corpse, and I've found that that can actually take quite a bit of time, and they need to get themselves all geared up. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. But once they do that, I'll show you. Okay, here we go. So we've got this guy to dump the item. It took a little bit of effort. I basically channeled out the area and then closed it off so that they couldn't just wander completely freely. Like this gate's been shut for them. And this person now, I forbidded all of the other items so they aren't messing with picking up items. And then I just dumped that, and I did have to click it and then unclick it to get them to actually go and try and do the dump order. So there was some issues with that right there. And now the body is no longer in ice. So it should be out of the ice area. And we should be able to pick that up and get that brought over to our pedestal. So if we, first of all, I'm going to need to give him access again. Dumping, sometimes when you do that, when I do that with a specific item, can be a little bit finicky. But anyways, we got that dumped. We're going to enable this area so that they can get down to my necromancy space. And then I'm going to find the corpse that's fresh that we just made right here. Yep, Ficod. He's the one. Now that should get brought to us, as long as it's not been designated to be like forbidden or dumped anymore. So now, yeah, that should end up getting taken over there. It may take them a minute, but someone's gonna go grab that corpse and bring it over to our friends over in the necro room, and then I'll show you what he looks like when we revive him. Okay. Okay, so we're getting the item put on display, the item being this guy's corpse, and that should get put right there. And you, my friend, are you being aggressive? You are. So that should eventually just spawn. Yep. Okay, well this time it came out as a zombie, but you can see that it severe blood loss, really, huh? It has no real injuries on it because it was frozen and unfrozen. So let's see what they actually look like proper. All right, so we've got Ficod right here. He is a vampire that is also undead that we got from freezing and then reanimating from our necromancer right here. And you can see that this is a really good unit, but unfortunately, they're not a citizen. They're like a long-term resident. So they show up in your list of citizens here, but they aren't actually citizens. They're considered to be long-term residents, so you can't put them in a military squad or anything. But what you can do is try and get them to petition. I have a whole video on that. So if you're interested in the exact mechanics, it basically has to do with your mayor having to talk to someone who they don't have access to. So a lot of times, like, yeah, this person right there, they don't have access to our mayor. They're trying to meet with the mayor. And until they can do that, no petitions will go through. And so if you have a bunch of vampires, you may have this issue where you're trying to attend a meeting, but they can't get there. And therefore you can't do necromancy. So just keep that in, or you can't do the citizenship portion of the converting the undead into actual citizens that you can do military tasks with. It is doable. I was thinking also putting in a little office for the mayor and making the mayor himself a vampire so they can talk to the living and the non-living. Just kind of have them be the middleman. So that kind of works, but it's kind of jank. But yeah, that's how you get undead vampires. Good luck with trying to get them to be citizens without them drawing too much blood, but you could do it. I think I only lost like a couple people before they actually applied to become citizens, but be careful.